listening to the podcast for learning the language of A Course in Miracles so you can understand the meaning, embody the message, and live the teachings as a way of life. Welcome to episode 22 of this podcast. I'm your host, Reverend Jennifer McSween, creator of this podcast, and the Course in Miracles practice coach for taking those who are studying the Course from inspiration to application. On this week's episode, I'm talking about sickness as the classroom for learning the truth. One of the most important teachings in A Course in Miracles, with which we have great difficulty as Course students when we don't look at it from the metaphysical perspective in which the Course is written, is what the Course teaches about sickness. From the perspective of the world, sickness is seen as something terrible or unfortunate that happens to us, usually caused by forces or sources outside of us or over which we have no control. And we really believe that sickness is something that shouldn't be, because all forms of sickness bring discomfort, seem to make us uncomfortable, seem to limit us, and at times even seem to threaten our very life itself. And the natural response to sickness is to heal it, usually by trying to get rid of the condition or the symptoms, and or look for ways as to how we can prevent ourselves from becoming sick in the future. We see sickness as frightening because it can often put an end to the life of our bodies. And since we think we are our bodies, or at least we're heavily identified with it, we really think this is what we are, this naturally means or will mean an end to our very life itself. So sickness is seen as something to be feared, fought, and beaten. And we really look at it and talk about it that way. Just listen to the way someone would speak if they receive, let's say, a diagnosis of cancer or something that's fatal. The first thing you would hear, either them or them along with their support team or their loved ones, they would be talking about how they're going to fight this illness, how they're going to beat it or conquer it in some way. And if you take a look at, there are a variety of groups and causes and all types of movements regarding certain illnesses, and their banner cry is usually, beat this, fight this, get rid of this. So we have a very combative approach towards sickness. We see it as a force to be reckoned with, and we literally take the attack to it. We literally take a weapon to it. Now, when we take this fear-based approach, accepting the false evidence that says we are our bodies as what is real and true about us, and to think that we have to get rid of the bodily condition in order to heal, or that sickness can literally take our very life, what we're doing can be likened to treating the symptoms of a condition without addressing the cause, in which case true healing cannot occur. And not looking at sickness within the context of the Course is what prevents us as Course students who struggle from experiencing true healing, the miracles the Course intends to teach, and what it is that usually may have brought us to the Course in the first place, the healing that we're seeking. And this is because they don't really understand what the Course is saying. And again, because it's not looked at within the context of the Course, it is still looked at from the perspective of the world. So it's important that we look at sickness or anything that the Course teaches, for that matter, within the context of the Course. From the perspective of the Course, sickness is just another form in which we experience the ego's thought system of separation. Regardless of the form in which it shows up, whether it's a benign common cold or a fatal condition, the Course sees it literally as nothing but the projection of a thought of guilt. And as I shared in episode number 15, guilt can be perceived as the belief that a godless, unjust, insane, lacking, or tragic thought could be real. It's a misperception that stems from the thought of separation. And so, just like the separation itself, it isn't real, it's an illusion. Workbook lesson 136 says, sickness is a defense against the truth. That's the title of the lesson. And this is because the body is a projection of the thought of guilt in the mind. The thought that believes that you have separated, that you now are a separate body, and feels guilty about having separated. So if you were to look at it from this perspective, then the body is really the symptom, and it's the thought of guilt in the mind that is the sickness showing up in the form of a sick body. Isn't that sick? It's actually kind of funny, but not really, not in reality, but not the way we experience it. But when you think about it, it is quite sick. Now, what this lesson is really teaching, though, is that regardless of the form of sickness with which your body or that of another might be afflicted, the real you are never threatened because you are not your body. See it for what it is. It is a projection of the thought of guilt over the belief in separation in your mind. So it is therefore just an illusion. It is not real. It is the result of entertaining the ego's thought system and will always block your awareness to the truth that you are not a body at all. The Course teaches that we are to look at and respond to sickness in the same way that we are to look at and respond to everything in form. That means everything in the world, the entire universe, along with everyone and everything that seems to be and take place in it. And that way is to look at it as a classroom and see the seeming specifics as teaching aids. So in other words, look at sickness in general as a classroom, the specific forms of sickness or in which sickness shows up, see them as teaching aids. That's literally coming to teach you something. Now, they're all for the purpose, with a capital P, of teaching us, helping us to learn or relearn the truth that the separation never happened. Or as the Course puts it, to learn to accept the atonement for ourselves. So when faced with sickness in any form, and whether it appears to be in your body, your own body, or that of another, if you look at it within the metaphysical framework of the Course that sees everything from the perspective of being a classroom, you look at everything that shows up as part of the curriculum. What this means is that instead of going into fear and attack mode and feel that it's something that is happening to you or to us, we will see it as a lesson being presented and ask, what is it for? What is it here to teach me? Because if you look at something as, if you look at everything that happens, that comes into your experience as your being in school and being in a classroom, if you feel like something is being taught to you, you're not going to feel like it is something that is being done to you to hurt you. So the moment you shift your perception from looking at it as something coming to hurt you and see it as something coming to teach you, and you ask, what is it for? What is it here to teach me? You realize that regardless of the form, it is only there to serve the purpose of healing and awakening, which is what this experience is all about. Asking what it's for and what is the lesson is asking to look at it from another perspective. It's the equivalent of asking to see through the Holy Spirit's perspective, from the Holy Spirit's perspective, the perspective of truth. And this will allow us to become open to the true perception that sickness is not something we need to or have to defend against, and that healing is not about getting rid of bodily conditions. Now, this doesn't mean that if you're sick, you shouldn't go to doctors or you shouldn't take medication to treat your symptoms or to alleviate the painful condition or any kind of discomfort that you're having, because the Course teaches the body is an illusion. Because as illusory as it is, we experience it as very, very real. And this is not a course in denial. The course is not teaching us to deny any of our experiences. We're just being asked to look at them differently, to look at them from a perspective of peace instead of pain, love instead of fear, and we are to literally look past the illusory form to the truth that lies behind. In other words, forgive. So sickness then becomes another classroom in which to practice forgiveness, which, by the way, is the only way to truly heal. Because we see the true cause of sickness as the thought in the mind when we look past the form that says form is what is real, and that's the only truth. We recognize the sick body as the symptom of a sick thought, so to speak, whose projection will always show up and be experienced in some form of pain, dis-ease, discomfort, or sickness. Remembering that all these forms are nothing but illusory projections of thoughts, and that at no time or in no way does the body exist at all. This is what we remember. So to see sickness as a classroom is that when you're faced with the presence of sickness in any form or in any body, yours or somebody else's, and you find yourself going into fear, remind yourself that this experience is just another classroom in which you can learn to recognize and accept the truth about you. If you're experiencing any form of fear, anxiety, worry, pity, whatever it may be, look at it as telling you that you are entertaining a perception that is not true. And that perception is serving or acting as a defense against the truth about you and everyone else. What you will realize is that you're being presented with an opportunity to choose to entertain the Holy Spirit's thought system instead. So you can see past the illusory forms of a sick body as your or anyone else's identity and recognize and experience the truth that lies behind. So that's it for this week. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Understanding the Language of A Course in Miracles podcast. If you enjoy this episode or found it helpful, please leave me a review on iTunes so that others can hear about it, enjoy it, and might also find it helpful. And do subscribe so you don't miss another episode. Have a great week, and see you on the podcast next Wednesday.